Hello, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, the podcast where we dig into ideas and insights that help you to unleash what you were born to bring. I chat with heart led experts. I ask the questions that you're already thinking about, and I explore conversations that spark growth, that shift perspectives, and help you to show up fully in life, at work, in your relationships, all over the place. And today we are exploring how to build a financial safety net before you quit your job. This conversation is worth your while because in a changing economy, job security is not guaranteed, but your calling is. So if you're feeling pulled towards something greater, even if you're not sure what it is, but you worry about the financial how, today's episode will show you how to build the financial bridge so that you can follow your calling with confidence and stability. I'm your host, Linda Bucher, and honestly, I do have the best job in the world because I get to help impact driven humans like you to get unstuck and unleash what you were born to bring. It's my superpower, it's my honor, but here's the thing. For decades, I tried to live life like everybody else thought I should. It left me stuck, frustrated, and feeling like my gifts were just waiting. And then I made a choice to stop chasing someone else's version of success and started stepping into my own. And I'm going to give you a tiny spoiler alert. I left the corporate world to do that. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But that journey didn't just change my life, it became my mission. And now I get to do the work I love that I already shared with you. So if you are ready to stop holding back and step fully into you, who you are, and unleash what you were born to bring, come say hello at lindabucher.com. There's a lot of goodness waiting for you there. Some insights, inspiration, all sorts of good stuff. Okay, so let's dive into our conversation, how to build a financial safety net before you quit your job. Today, my guest is Tania Brown. She is a job exit strategist who's making really positive ripples in a unique way. Tania, she helps women over the age of 40 to financially prepare to quit their jobs and go solo, which is awesome. And I wish I knew you when I had gone through that because I was 45 when I quit my job to go solo. So Tania, thank you so much for being my guest today. Can you just tell us a little bit more about this beautiful work you're doing in the world?
Sure. Thank you. So you said it beautifully that at its concise core, I help women over the age of 40 typically financially prepare to quit their jobs and go solo. What I say is, if you scratch the surface of that, what I really do is help build the financial skills through a five-step framework to give women the financial confidence to let go of what no longer serves them, oftentimes for the first time, so they can grab a hold of what does. And I think the passion and holding space for people as they go through that is what brings me just the ultimate joy in what I do.
That's beautiful. And there's a lot of experts out in the world, but the experts like me and like you who hold, like, it's joyful for us to, we're honored to be able to do this work in the world. There's a word that I had a client, a Pakistani woman, and she shared it with me. And I think it was called Seve, Seve, I think it was. And it was the honor and privilege to serve.
Yep.
It was such a beautiful word. I'm like, that's it, right? So, I love to be surrounded by people who feel that way like I do, and I know that you're one of them. And it is a big difference because there's a lot of experts, a lot of financial experts out there, but your purpose, that like the reason you do what you do
Mhm.
is so beautiful. So it's tied, it's basically tied. We're both talking about unleash. And so you tell me, just say your sentence again, because I loved it, about why you do this beautiful work.
I, I'm ex-military, so another way I've put it also is I feel I'm called to stand guard over people's dreams and to be that bridge because it is scary to let go of what no longer serves you. It's scary to grab a hold of what does. And frankly, I don't know what else to say. It is pure joy. That's the only word to walk someone in that space.
I get it. I love it
Yeah.
too. Beautiful. So like I know as we speak with our listeners are like, okay, you two joyful ladies over there, like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. I'm at a job that is like maybe if they felt like I felt when I was 45,
Mhm.
sucking the life out of me. Like that's how I felt about it. And it was weird because when I look back, it wasn't really the work. I loved the work, but there was something about me that was changing inside. And it was like the real me was like, I probably hadn't listened for a good 10 years when she was like, the true me was like, hey, everybody, we're supposed to be doing something else. I know we don't know what it is, but it's not this. Because I said it really noisily. I go, I don't know what I'm supposed to be living, but it's not this life. But I wasn't ready to go on the journey to find out what it was. And there's a
Mhm.
lot of reasons for that I'm sure our listeners have as well. And I was over 40. I was 45 by the time I listened. And I listened because I really had no choice. Because when you don't follow the way you're meant to be going in the world, you will experience difficulties. Mine were a lot of physical symptoms. It's
Mhm.
basically your higher self saying, your GPS going, turn around, make a U-turn. Hello, you went 752 miles past the exit. Like, get off. And that's kind of where I was. And it felt sucky. So I don't know if you have a similar story, but I mean, I
Yeah.
get it. I get what it's like to be in that position and not
Yeah.
even what my calling was. I just knew it's not what I'm doing.
Yeah, so my journey started from what I lovingly call the performance review from hell. And how that got started. So to give background, I have about 30 years experience in the financial service industry. So I've coached actually literally thousands of people. And my role evolved more of a consulting role where I would go into organizations and help them build out their programs. A lot of the programs was a job exit. So that's kind of helpful, but this also required a lot of travel, time away from the kids. It was a very demanding job. And you pretty much had to go when there was a potential sale of a Fortune 500 company. One of these times I was closing on my house and I knew it was the dates were going to conflict. So let my leadership know, hey, I got to close on my house, can't make it. They're like, great, fine. And fast forward a few months to my review, and I basically got ripped a new one. And it was, how dare you not prioritize your us. Like, this was a big deal. Keep in mind, my team was more than equipped, but this is a big deal. You really should have been here. Your priorities were out of order, and I got dinged for 2 quarters because of that. Needless to say, I was done.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
just
Like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not prioritizing this corporate um, you know, entity over my own children and husband and family and where I live. I'm so sorry. Like, but that's what gets people in trouble. That's part of when we are, following that as a mindset, because that's success. Do what you got to do in work and climb that ladder and whatever. When we're doing that, we're going so far against our true selves. And that's what causes the burnout that causes us to be, I'm done. And that's where I was. I was like, okay, I'm all done. you know,
yeah, I agree. And so when I help people financially plan, I try to help them in what the reality is. I think everyone's fantasy is that they're going to be able to manage full-time work with starting a business, and then when they quit, they just evolve straight into the business. And I tell people the only thing you evolve into on average for the first 3 months is just binging on Netflix and just Ben and Jerry's. You have no idea how much you need to detox. So I find on average 3 months, you basically are not doing much. And it is not laziness. It's not you. I feel like what I see on my end is there is so much pent up things you never dealt with. You're exhausted. So I actually tell people for the first 3 months, we're going to need to figure out how you're going to survive, because more than likely you're not going to be at a capacity for clients.
that's 100% true. When I quit my job, it was March, and I was already in a program I was in life coaching school at the time. But I can't tell you how many hours I sat outside and looked at the grass. I drove to a park and walked around. I I just like the transition from the go, 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 get up so early, whatever, to like having the freedom to just be. And before, and I mean, I was still learning, right? Doing my homework, doing the things I got to do because it's a year long program. But like I gave myself permission to just be. and it was so needed. It really was a mental and emotional detox and making space, like, you know, for what's next. Now, I was financial able to do that, but before we
Mhm.
talk about how we do that, let's talk
Mhm.
about all of the fears, because it's not only financial, but that is a giant fear that we're going to dive in more specifically to. But when I was quitting my big, important, fancy job to go back to school to become a, what the heck is a life coach? I don't know, but I'm supposed to be one calling. All right. Um, everyone thought I was insane. I was a widowed mom of three little kids, and they're like, you have a really good job. You got to raise these kids. What are you thinking? Right? How irresponsible. But I want to mention the way I thought of it was like, no, it's way more irresponsible to live a life that isn't me, that feels bad to say, oh, you made your bed, now lie in it. That's your job. Do that. To suck, have it hate it, be exhausted at night, exhausted on the weekends, prioritizing that. That's the way worse example to my children, because I want them to grow up to say, huh, well, that's not working. I give myself permission and trust to do something different. And so I'm like, I got to be an example. My legacy of that example is way more important than what other people thought, that they thought, oh, I'm irresponsible. I'm like, no, I'm actually responsible, not irresponsible. That's responsible. So there's a lot of fears of judgment, and it
Mhm.
will come. And we want to be open and honest about that. Yeah, people are going to judge you for doing that. Some will judge you because they love you and they're afraid. Others
Mhm.
will judge you because they don't have the guts to do it,
Mhm.
so they're going to judge you that way. Um, and that's something more that, like, I would help my clients move through. So
Mhm.
we kind of work in a tandem way, right? I
Yeah.
help you know, release a lot of the fear that's not financial, and to get clear on what their calling is, what their what next is, right? Because sometimes, like me, I was just like, I'm so ready to be out. But luckily, I found that calling 2 months, and only 2 months later, I
Mhm.
quit my job. That's the trust.
Yeah.
So, but let's talk about this financial fear. You said something, we were talking ahead of time, that I
Mhm.
was like, so say it again.
Oh, I don't remember what I said.
That's something to do with $10.
Oh yeah, I always, no matter whether you have $10 or 100,000, it's possible, because something you said brought up something before that.
Okay.
One of the biggest, so I address a very specific group, and this is the group I feel get trampled on a lot. Um, I want to acknowledge someone's fear. If you are terrified to become a business owner, if you have never owned a business, if you have spent 20 or 30 years strictly getting W-2, if you have never been around a successful business owner, it makes sense that I find the micro fear is, can I even make money being self-employed? And I find that shows itself up in analysis paralysis and everything else. So for me to even get to the strategies, I first have to lay ground fertile. And if you don't believe that's possible, nothing I'm going to say will work. So the first thing we have to do is get you to a place where you believe it's possible. So I call it micro bridges of beliefs. So it's, how do I work with you to create these micro bridges? And for some, you may need to just prove that you can get paid. So I go outside the box on this one. I'm like, look, just find someone. I don't care if it's $25. Something hits your account and your brain has proven to yourself experientially that you can earn this. And I find people will naturally increase. Now that that doorway is open and those horse blinders are off, now we can go over strategies, because it's going to be on fertile ground. And I tell people, when you're looking to quit, you got two sides. You got savings, you got strategy. Where the lever is dependent on which one is stronger. So
Mm,
if you don't have a lot of savings, we are a straight up strategy. If you have a ton of savings, then you have room for options. So if you don't have a lot of savings, it may look like a series of bunny hops. And what I mean by that is, it may not be a complete hop into self employment.
mm,
It may be a part-time job, a 30-hour-a-week job, a 20-hour-a-week job. And as you grow your business, you gradually decrease your hours to the point where you can step into your business full time. And to be completely honest, that's the way I see a lot of people doing it. It's rare that I run across someone that was able to straight up quit, even though it's possible. And but that bridge is what I call that job is what I call a bridge job. I use a lot of bridge analogies talking to you. So to because I tell people this is not career 2.0. This is strategically so you can mentally. So it may be if you're a VP, it may be even a job administrative. Like the goal of the job is to free your headspace, to give you enough income to slow down the spending, and most importantly, the time and the legal ability to operate as a business owner. I also tell people read your documents. Some businesses do not allow you to have anything outside of that one W-2.
Right.
So again, if there's not a lot of money, it's strategy. So think bunny hops.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I also you brought up I love that you talk about the bridge of beliefs. I have this tool that I teach called the belief continuum. So
Mm,
at one end is impossible, not bloody likely when pigs fly. And then as you move along, you get to me and in my this is I'm very visual. So to me, this is like a confined hallway. It's out, the walls are closed. There's no windows. There's no doors. That's where you are
yeah,
down there. It's very dark. There's no lights. Very dark. Once you get to possible, the rest of the corridor is lighter. And
yeah,
possible is the magic place because until you believe something is possible, you won't ask the magic question of how. How did he
exactly.
how did she do it? How might I do
Mm,
it? So, work that you and I do, we want to get people to possible.
yeah,
From possible, so many fears let go, but then more
exactly.
fears come in. Like, but what if I don't have what it takes, right?
Mm,
Just to finish
yeah,
the belief continuum, as you move down it, as you shift your belief in those micro ways that you're talking,
mm,
you get to it's likely, it's probable, it's inevitable, and then now there's bigger windows and maybe some doors, but at the very
mm,
end it's wide open. There's no door, it's just wide open and full of light, and it's here's what it is, it's already done. You say
yeah.
it out loud, you will feel an energy in your body that is so magical, and it's basically the definition of the word amen. It's already done. I
Mm,
believe it's already done. So that's the belief continuum, and helping our clients to move down to it. So mindset wise, like I might help people, I always help people find their what's next and give
mhm,
themselves permission to do it and get rid of all those fears and go down this belief continuum so that they have this feeling like, I might not know what it is yet, but it's already done. I already know.
yeah,
So that's a beautiful thing I wanted to bring up. And then, of course, this fear of what if I don't have what it takes? So I love your bunny hop analogy of like, you don't like your next job doesn't have to be your end all be all. It's just a stepping stone. And I
mm,
also tell people keep your job as long as possible. Let them
yeah.
finance your growth and expansion into what's next. Let them, they don't even know they're paying you to start your own business, but they are, you know?
Yeah, and I can give you an example that I tell them when you get to possible, your job becomes your strategic partner. So an example, I had a woman who wanted to do an event planning business and she worked for a Fortune 500 company. I knew they have event plan. They have huge events. And I told her, this is what we're going to do. You are volunteering to help out with an event. But not only was she volunteering, she was going to help coordinate with the vendors. And I said, every one of those vendors better be on your LinkedIn connection.
Right.
And then on top of that, we are going to do registration because every single registration, they have to come to you. And it gives her an opportunity to say, yeah, I helped do this. And
Mm-hmm.
she was able to literally build her business from there. So it's when possibility starts to exist, you start to see opportunities. But it took a while for us to get there, for her to even see that what she wanted for her business was really directly in front of her.
Right. But what a beautiful example of when you say strategy, you're like, oh, you need savings or strategies somewhere along. So that's a beautiful example of strategy in the job you have. Let's use this
Yep.
strategy that positions you to expand in the direction that your calling is anyway. And then pragmatically make those connections, right? So,
Yep.
and yeah, and while you're getting paid by that employer that you know you're going to leave, they don't know, but you know. Um, and so, yeah, that's beautiful. Is there any other examples of strategy that you have? Because it's something I think our listeners, everyone's thinking, I have to have the savings. I don't have the savings. I can't quit. So that's why this is like so brand new. That's why I'm like, this is so wow to be like, so what other example might you have?
If you have zero, it's networking. It's like I back, for those of us that are older, before the internet, we got how networking is important. But if you don't have a network while you are employed, especially if the people around you can be potentially your clients, we are slowly building up connections before we quit because you have the richest source of resources, which is your job. If your job has affinity groups, we're joining those affinity groups. So to me, again, especially super large Fortune 500 companies, they have 10 plus affinity groups, these employer resources groups where they meet, they're in community. That is an amazing resource that gets completely cut off when you leave. So take advantage of your network. If there is a specialized skill you need, like a project management certification, if your job offers it and they're willing to pay for it and there's not some type of string attached to tenure, how long you have to work for them, we're going to get that done while you are employed. If there is an opportunity to, if you want to be a copywriter, if your company has a newsletter, help them do the newsletter. Like it's seeing the opportunities and some of the stuff where you may have seen as free labor. No, they're helping you build your skill set. They're helping you build your portfolio. So
Yeah,
you're able to move forward. Plus, you have the financial resources to do things like save and pay off debt. And also, the best time to look for a job is when you have one. So if the sabbatical isn't a possibility, then that maybe look for the part-time job while you're there. Take off as much time as you can, but you can roll directly into the job. Maybe if you can only do a few weeks, I'd rather you do a few weeks than nothing.
right, right. Yeah. Yeah, those are great examples of strategy. And so you can be preparing before you make the leap. And you can prepare in lots of different ways. And then, the other obvious ways financially would be to get your financial house in order. A lot of people are really oblivious as to their spending and where their stuff is. Like, I remember I helped my mother-in-law when my father-in-law passed away, like to realign, like, what's coming out of, why are you paying this out of, where'd you write that check from? Like, I'm like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We have two accounts. This is gonna be for your this, and that's gonna be for your that, and this is gonna be your savings, and we're just gonna align it. You always pay these out of here. And she was like, oh, that, like, it didn't occur to her. She didn't know what was going from where. And then I'm like, well, let's make it go where we think it should go instead of just figuring it out. Like, let's realign it. And now she's 84, 83 years old. Now she's like, I got a handle on it. I go into my accounts online. I check. I know this is it. I look at something like, what do I recognize that? Oh yeah, I wrote that because that out of that check because of that. So just knowing what's where and then making informed decisions based on where you want to go, what kind of changes you need to make. Those are really important. And a lot of people don't prioritize knowing. They're just like, well, I get paid, I spend my stuff, and then that's it. So, and so I want you to say something, but then I have something more to say about spending.
That is 100% true. And a lot of times people will ask me, okay, if I'm trying to get my financial house in order, what's the first step? And I tell them, look at your prior month spending.
Yep.
Like if this is October, then we're going to look at from September 1st to the end of September, and we're going to look at real numbers, not fantasy numbers,
Mhm.
to the penny. What exactly did you spend last month, and exactly what you spent it on? That's the starting point because now you're working with concrete numbers. Now you can say, I either need to dial this up and dial this down. And then the second question is this what you want your monthly spending to look like when you quit?
Right. That's huge. That's really important. Like I know
Mhm.
Like my daughter overruns a checking account all the time. It's
Mhm.
always overdrawn, always. And then she's like, oh, because it's a debit card problem. They have it like, I'm like, I have never used a debit card in my life because I'm smart and I want to know when I spend money. Plus a credit card, but I pay it off in full every month. That's just how
Mhm.
I've that's just how I do it. And it just is beautiful. But she's always because these little $4 things. Oh, I bought a coffee here. I bought an energy drink there. I bought a snack at this thing. I don't think if she were to look at that month and she'd be like, okay, on non-essential, bad for me food, I spent $400. She'd be like, what? A, no wonder I'm poor. B, why would I spend that much money on that kind of stuff? Right. But when she doesn't look at it, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know, but she's not, I look at it because we share an account, but it's hers. And I'm like, well, sometimes I'll be like, hey, did you see your checking account's overdrawn? Oh, sorry. Like it's just, but again, if when you look at it, and then and then you could say, yeah, I do want to spend 400 a month on energy drinks and ding dongs, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
okay, because you do get to choose. And a lot of people confuse the word budget. They make it mean I have to lack for something. And that's not what budget is. Um, Budget is what you want to give to yourself so that you can get these things you like, that you want, that you'd love to have. So if you look at it from a terms of I got to cut things off and it's lack, nobody wants to budget. Like it's just like as humans, we don't like to be in lack, right? We do enough of that with our own self-talk. So we don't want to be in lack. Um, so maybe I don't know if there's another word that you like to help with people instead of the word budget, because I know it has like a bad connotation to it.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. When I talk, I actually typically call it a spending plan. And I'm like, we are planning for how your values will live out in dollars.
Mm,
That's ultimately what it
great.
is. So it is, and I don't get to dictate that. So if getting your nails done every 2 weeks, I had
Said
one
it done
woman, she was
today.
a single, yeah, she was a single mom. And it was so funny. I normally don't demand. I demanded she put nail care on her stuff because everything in her budget was geared towards her kids. And I'm like, we have to have something for self. And she wanted to leave it off because I'm gonna become self-employed. I'm like, this is 2 years. We have to figure this out. So it's what are the things you can what does your spending need to look like for you not to feel deprived? I always say there's a delight in doing things you want and then there's deprivation. And frankly, when you're looking at a season of no income, you have to find the middle ground. If you live in deprivation, you are going to self sabotage. It's like the person that says, I will only eat salads. I will not go near any sweets at all for the rest of my life. That's about as unrealistic as that type of a budget. So I think people are very surprised that I have people add stuff in. So to me, budget or spending plan, it is your decision for how you're going to give dollars to your values. That's ultimately what it is.
Beautiful. I love that. Okay. So I think we've been super clear on a lot of good things today. So some main points we've talked is even with $10, you said you can still strategize so that you can follow your calling and be self-employed, being well aware that there will be a gap, not just a gap because you need to detox and just chill the F out for 3 months or 6 months, however long it takes you, depending on how much is pent up. But then because that bridge job, if you choose to have the bridge job, might not be as high paying as the last one. And your new endeavor takes a little bit of time and to build up. We know that. So strategy is what bridges those gaps.
Yeah,
Um,
if you have, yeah.
main point. Mhm.
So if you, again, if you work for a larger company, especially depending on what state you live in, you can cash out your PTO. So if you don't have money, it may be not taking PTO, and that gives you the cash to take the time off when you're self-employed. You didn't put a dollar into it in your own name, but now you have the check. So that's why I'm saying the strategies doesn't necessarily have to be tied to you giving money, and your job just funded the sabbatical so you can detox from them, which sounds wrong, but they,
I know what you're
they self subsidize your healing.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So that I think that's a beautiful point and probably something people have never really thought of it this way before. So you have lots of different strategies. It's not a one size fits all. We've given a couple examples, PTO being an example. Um, Learning a new skill while you're there as another example. Um, and then, but there's many that you can help people with. And then
Yeah.
there's the spending plan, which is really, not only pragmatic but a mindset way because it's value based. So I love that you said, you're putting value, it's a dollar value thing. Like what do I value? And that's where I'm going to put my dollars. So it's
Mhm.
not about lack because you'll self-sabotage and you won't be able to meet your goal of your calling if you're self-sabotaging. So spending plan, don't think of it as a lack of budget. I got to put myself on a financial diet. We don't need to think that way. We can think of, ooh, what's important to me and where do I want to put my money? All the time, remembering the why. Because if the why is super important to you, like it's because, like, I got this thing inside of me that's got to get out. It just
Yeah.
has to.
And also, if someone were to ask me what is the most critical thing they can do to prepare to leave, it is looking at their last month's spending, because every single number depends on that one. How do you know how much to save if you have no idea how much you really spend? How much do you need to earn or charge for your services if you have no idea how much money it really takes to keep the lights on? So if you don't have that number, every number you are creating is false.
Right. I know. It's interesting. The financial planner will say, like, well, how much do you want to live on a year? And you just make some arbitrary dollar amount up, sometimes tied to what you were making, which is not
Yes.
necessarily true. I
Right.
remember having a client who was just hating his job, and he had been paid to move locally because he was sought after, and they're like, we'll fund your move, whatever. But he had like a 2 year you can't quit clause, like you're saying, a 10-year clause on it, right? And and his wife had a job. She didn't make a ton of money, but still decent enough, And it was his ego tied to that big giant salary. So I didn't say anything because I'm like, if he's going to resist, why are you talking to me about what your what next is if you're not going to do it? Right. Like, so let's just see if there's any wiggle room. I don't care what the numbers, and you do not need to share the number with me. But your homework this week, I always give some growth activities to my clients, is to look at how you guys love to live and come up with a revenue requirements approach. So, what revenue would be required to go out for dinner the way we want to go, like what you're saying, get your nails done or whatever, like the house, they already had a house. I don't know if he had a mortgage or not. He was thinking he wanted to buy a boat, like just put all those things in for you. If you had all that, how much would you need? So instead of looking at how much you make, how much would you need to live that way? And he came back the next week and he's like, so much less than I make. I'm like, oh,
I find that to be very, very true. And that is why I say for some people, it's the second job is simply to help slow down the spending out of the savings. But a lot of people are surprised. Also, you're not pulling money out of your 401k. Your W-2 income is not quite the same as self-employment income. You can actually earn less and your net is more because I mean, W-2 income is just expensive. It is the most taxed. You don't have the same tax deductions. You don't have the same tax advantages. So it's not the same, but I totally agree. I base it on what they actually need. And yes, I find people are surprised they need less than they think.
yes, it's amazing. It's
Mhm.
really amazing. And then, of course, we also had to move through um, so, what's your priority? Because yes, you'll have to pay back the move money if you don't stay
Mhm.
the years. You know, um, could you afford to do that? And is it worth it for you to be able to do that so that you can get on with your what's next that we discovered? And he was like, that's a good question. And 3 months later, when we were all done with their work, 3 months later, he emailed me. He goes, I quit that company. paid him back. And I'm doing consulting, which is what we discovered was his best
Mhm.
fit for who he was in his same field, but he needed to be more project based. That's what fit him instead of like the same old every single day. Right. So he did it. And he needed to give himself permission to do it, but you can't do that when you're hanging on to fear. So when you have answers, knowledge is an antidote to fear.
Yeah.
Lowering the stakes is an antidote to fear. So using programs like yours, like what you have, um, and the different ways you help people with the strategy that's going to fit them from where they are. So I love that you don't have a one size fits all. Um,
Mhm.
that's very beautiful, and that knowing your spending, that's really cool. So I always like to, kind of finish up with like something small people can do before they go, oh, that was really good. I love that. Now I know more stuff. Next podcast, right? Like it takes doing. If you've been given this calling for a reason, each one of us for a reason. It's kind of our duty and responsibility to get it out to
Mhm.
the world. So we've got to move past resistance. But just like your little bunny hops in the coaching world, I call them turtle steps. The
Mhm.
smallest little thing you can do today that it is moving you towards your future goal. So what would be a turtle step that you would offer to our listeners today?
If the financial how is the biggest barrier, and it's funny, it's a turtle step because of technology. I'm going to go back to look at last month's spending. Literally, if they have bank accounts, it's clicking on a button and putting their spending for the prior month. So this is a 3-minute task.
Mm,
It won't feel like 3 minutes because it feels monumental. Again, 5 years ago, I couldn't say this. And if you can't, well, then look at the last 2 weeks of spending. If you can't, then look at the last week of spending. So
mhm.
it's looking at prior spending. So the micro step is at least look at last week.
Okay.
That's the first step.
I think that's totally doable.
Yeah.
That's totally doable. I'm going to log into my Amazon account. They're like, well, I can look at them like that rug, that,
Yeah.
like, but yes, because we want to be intentional. That's the bottom
Mhm.
line. So that's a beautiful small step. I love that. Um, I would say a small step because the biggest people have resistance and fear. That's what it is. Resistance and fear. And you've given some wonderful ways to remove the fear of, living under a bridge. Like that's what we're worried about. Like, right. And so, I would say um, a small little turtle step would be I like putting it in a what if or I'm willing to
Mhm.
statement. So I'm willing to consider I might just be able to trust myself to do this.
Yeah.
I'm willing to consider I might just have what it takes.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm. I
So,
was I was gonna say, after you've been in business for a while, and if all of us are honest, there are people we look at and we're like, how do they have a successful business? And what I have learned, it is almost this delusional self-confidence. That's it. It is not skill, it is not intelligence. It's they have this almost, again, not almost, some of them have an absolute delusional belief that people desperately need them, and that is it. And if you ask me, just especially when at one point I was a chair of a small business committee, and I would see businesses that were successful that just baffled me. And I'm like, no offense to the person, but how is this even possible? That's the one factor. It had nothing to do with skill set. And I'm like, with some of the businesses I've seen, I will never say there's not any business that can't be successful. It's insane, some of the successful businesses I saw.
right. And there's the power of that. It's already done. That belief, they're all the way down the corridor. They're like, it's already done.
Yes,
Right. That's so powerful. And
they own the corridor.
is they believe they have what it takes or someone else does that they can that would help them or support them. They're not
The
stuck in
food,
the
the
worry
corridor.
of I don't have enough. They're not in that lack, and they
Yeah,
might be completely oblivious because they might lack a whole lot of what they need, but that belief that it will come to me however
yeah,
I need it, it works. So
it
that's
does.
huge.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing up that point. Oh my God, that's fantastic. Awesome. Okay, Tanya, I have loved our conversation today. I want to thank you so much for being a guest on Conversations Worth Your While. Can you share? I know you have some things to share with people if they want to, like get a little bit started, just take a little step and see what's going on. And then also please tell them how to contact you. So, yeah.
Sure. So if you are thinking that you may want to quit your job, more than likely you've done some planning. So I offer a quiz and it's called Ready to Quit Your Job. Let's double check your plan. And this quiz represents my experience. You get someone who's done this for 30 years, coached thousands, chaired business committees, and I saw the mistakes that people made in their planning. And within a few minutes, we catch any gaps and give you a solid action step with the tools to do it. So I tell people, please do that to get started. And if someone wants to contact me, they can go directly to my website, Tania P, because there's 1,000 Tanya Browns out there. So Tania P Brown, and it's TANIA Brown.com. Schedule an appointment. If anything, a conversation. It is, I love this. I love hearing people's dreams. So even as a conversation, if I'm not a fit, I've been around long enough, I can point you to who is.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. That's wonderful. And listener, if you're unsure about your calling or purpose and you would love to find what that is, then head on over to lindabucher.com. You can send me a note. You can schedule a free little chat with me. There's some other resources there. And I also have a quiz. It's called the Little Quiz for Going Big because you were meant to unleash something important in this world, and you can't do it if you're in your own way or if you don't know what it is. So that's my level of expertise. And that is our show. So if this episode sparks something in you, please be sure to like it, to subscribe to the podcast, and then share this episode with someone that you care about. And then come back next week for another honest, uplifting conversation to help you grow.